Hey y'all, this is Culture Soup, where tech, culture, and business collide. It's a podcast that spoons up everything hot from social media. I'm your host, L. Michelle Smith, and each episode we bring you some of the most notable and not yet notable thought leaders in tech, business, and culture. Before there was Twitter or microblogging, before there was Facebook, there were bloggers. And if you look at the word blog, the original word was weblog. And that meant people who actually were logging or writing on the web. Blogging is actually a very admirable thing to do. And some people have made a lot of money doing it. Some people have launched entirely new careers. I have a few friends like that, but very few have been successful enough to say that they exist at the intersection of tech, business, and culture. I know a few, but not many. I have something pretty special for you guys today. I'm bringing on a longtime friend, and her kids and her husband are all very much a part of her blogging. She is a recent Howard Law School graduate. She's sharp as a tack. She's Trini American. Her parents both immigrated to the United States from Trinidad and Tobago. One a doctor, the other an attorney. And she fell into blogging. And it's a very interesting story. And as she fell, so did her family. She has an amazing story. I want you to hear it. She sits at the intersection of tech, business, and culture. Introducing Eva Green Wilson, aka SocaMom. You have 3 kiddos, and what are their names?
David, Eden, and Evan.
Right, and I've had the pleasure of meeting all 3.
Yes.
Just a joy. And all 3 of them have at some point or are currently also blogging or microblogging or involved in the internet as an influencer in some way. Isn't that right?
Yes, they took a cue from me early on, and they really believe they can do anything through the power of the internet. They can do whatever they want.
Wow. Okay. So, and their ages are?
So David is 13, Eden is 12, and Evan is 19.
Okay, excellent. So we want to look at what's going on the internet through their lens, if you will, and also through your lens as a parent. And I want to talk about how you actually frame up what is out there, from Kanye to Kavanaugh, how you frame up all that's in those internet streets, because we know they can be treacherous. How you frame that up for them, because they probably come in contact with a lot of this stuff.
Well, just today, one will say, so we're having various conversations because I homeschool the 2 youngest. So we have a lot of conversations around, current events and things like that. And the oldest brings up, actually that must have been yesterday because he's gone today, but the oldest brings up Kavanaugh. And then the youngest says, "Who's Kavanaugh?" Actually says, "What's Kavanaugh?"
Oh, wow.
And then the 13-year-old, so this is only an 11-month difference, goes into who Kavanaugh is. And I'm going, okay, wait. I'm with these 2 all the time. One has absolutely no clue what's happening, and the other one is fully informed. How does this happen? So a lot of times, so they don't have access to social media on their own because they're still just 12 and 13. And it's such a frightening landscape. You have so many different voices and so many different opinions, and that's fine, but it's really difficult for somebody that age to filter out right from
Right.
wrong, the voices the loudest, whoever has the most followers, the most retweets. So it's difficult for them to separate fact from fiction. But as long as they are with me, there's plenty of times in the day that they're not. So, they have tennis, they have gymnastics, they have other classes that they take. So they have conversations with other kids.
Mm-hmm.
So, the same way, I just kind of have to throw out something every now and then and ask them what they think about this, or wait until what's a Kavanaugh comes up.
Right.
Kind of, you know, lead them back to the facts, because they get a whole lot of influence from kids who have a lot of influence. So it's not just
Mm-hmm.
their, what they find online, because they don't really look online for things by
Mm-hmm.
themselves. It's what other kids and other parents are allowing their children to see
Well,
online.
I had a glimpse of that, even though Joni, who's 6 years old, is not online at all. But when she was in kindergarten, right after the election, came home crying because Trump had won.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I had this moment where I was freaked out. One, because I never talked about the man. We never watched the news. It's always on Nick Jr. It's always on, Disney Jr. or something. She does go and stay with her grandparents from time to time, and they're always mindful to keep the news off. But what I found out was some kid from school brought it up at the lunch table and had all the kiddos upset about the election.
Oh,
And I realized,
oh
I
my
was like,
goodness.
wow, okay, how do I deal with this? And I feel like I can't even listen to NPR on the radio, because like every other word is sexual harassment,
Yes.
this and that. So
Yes.
how do you deal with the Kavanaugh thing with your kids?
Well, so comedy. So the 13-year-old, at the end of this whole description, he ends with the air quotes, allegedly. What?
Oh,
What is happening right now? So, I just kind of listen to see what side of the issue they think they're on. And then, just kind of discuss it from there. Because I remember the youngest, Miss Eden, was on the phone. Now, when she's on the phone with her friends, she's on speakerphone. Not because I'm listening, but because she's an old lady and she likes to have it on
because that's
speakerphone.
exactly what my parents do.
Right. So she just likes to have it on speaker. And one of her friends said, well, all lives matter.
Oh.
And she was just like, what do you mean? Like she's like, I don't quite understand what that means. Because we live in DC.
Right.
And on any given lawn of you could be black, white, Hispanic, you're going to see Black Lives Matter signs. Even though Trump is president, it's still a very liberal city.
Right.
And so she was confused, like, where did you come from? How is this possible? And she was just like, hey, mommy, did you hear what she said? Like, it was just the most ridiculous thing she had ever heard. And then she kind of wanted me to fix it. I'm like, no, hun, if you all are going to have those conversations, you listen to your friend, hear her out, see what she has to say, and you all have this discussion. But luckily, again, she's on speakerphone, and it wasn't about, sexual harassment or anything like that. But they just kind of talk it out.
Wow.
And, agree to disagree, because her friend was not coming back from All Lives Matter, and she was not letting go of Black Lives Matter.
So your oldest, does he now have an idea of what the Kavanaugh thing is about?
Evan, of course, he navigates the internet by himself, so he knows all sides of the issue. My middle son, the 13-year-old, he has an idea, but he's kind of at that age where he doesn't want you to know that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
Kind of like you just kind of have to catch what you can. And then my oldest is very good about that. He'll explain things to him, because he's like I said, he's at the age where he doesn't want to talk to me about that kind of stuff. So my oldest will explain things to him, and then he'll come back to me and say, well, this is what I told him, and these are the kinds of questions that he has, and stuff like that. Because at his age, they don't really understand um, forcing themselves on somebody.
Right.
Like he can't understand why somebody would even need to do that,
Mm-hmm.
want to do that. So that's the part that he didn't really,
Well, it
he
forces
wasn't,
all these other conversations that you're probably not even like,
oh no,
that was not on
mm-mm.
my schedule. That was not on my
It,
agenda. Thank you,
it was
news.
not, it
Thank you,
was not.
Twitter.
And it's really, if you can shield your kids as much as you want to from the internet and social media. My kids have accounts, but basically I have the account. They don't really go through it other than to, add whatever pictures they want to add. They might do an Instagram story, but they know as soon as they press submit or send or whatever, they better give me my phone back, because I don't want you scrolling, because you never know what's going to
You
come up. I
never
don't want you
know.
scrolling. I don't want you swiping. I don't want you doing any of those things. But the conversations you can't control are the ones that other kids are having with their parents,
Right.
and then they bring that
That's
conversation to
exactly
your
it. That's
kids.
exactly
So
it.
you can't avoid it.
No,
People want to run from it. You can't.
there's no way.
Years and years ago, I've always been into computers ever since I was like a little kid. I was programming in BASIC rather than going outside.
How
I
old were
was
you?
sitting. Oh gosh. Hmm. I think I got my first subscription to Apple Magazine
Oh, wow.
in 1983, 84. So I might have been about 7 or 8, something like
Wow.
that.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I
I
had
was
the same
a year ago.
conversation with Jalen Bledsoe, the 20-year-old multimillionaire. And we're
Yeah.
talking about when we learned to code. And he was 12, I was 12 when I learned BASIC. And I had a Commodore 64. That's one thing I hadn't told him. But I had the Commodore 64. And the reason why I had the Commodore, go ahead.
I said, look at you.
Yeah, well, it was a forced issue with my dad. He actually programmed first generation computers with the punch cards and all of that good stuff, filled up a whole room. You needed
Oh, wow.
fans and air conditioners, like hidden
Yes.
figures, right? Like that. So anyway, I asked for an Atari. You remember those? The game?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I asked for an Atari console, and it was the nice one. And I wanted to play Centipede, Pac-Man, and all those things. And so he got it. He got it for Christmas, I believe. And probably about 3 days in, he looked at that thing and he said, "Shelly, I'm taking it back." I said,
Oh
"Why,
boy.
Daddy?" He said, "Because all you can do is game. You need to learn how to program the thing." And I just kind of looked
Oh
at him
wow.
like, I don't need to do that. And he said,
Same
"Yes,
thing
you
kids
do."
would say today.
Yes, so he went and got a Commodore 64, and he showed me where I could put the cartridges in the back and play the same games, but I had to learn BASIC too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that, because it really sets up the way that your mind works. I realize that my brain works a little bit differently, and my husband, he is a computer science major. So the conversations that we have, and like communicating with the kids, and it's a very like kind of a linear thing sometimes, and then it kind of has the whole decision tree thing happening. It's just like the way it shapes up the way that you think.
Right. So you got your Apple Mac at the age of 7, 8,
Yes.
something like that. You start coding, and then
Yes.
what?
And I've just always been, kind of into computers and things like that. And then as I got older, I learned HTML and started playing around with making, websites and stuff like that. And then I started my first blog. You're going to crack up at this one. Who Wants to Marry My Brother?
I
Okay,
remember
so
that, and I got to tell you, I
was
actually
it not ridiculous?
It was comedy. I think by the time I found it online, it was defunct, but there was
Yes,
at least enough in the cache for me to read.
like it was brief, but the part that got me was the blogging part of it, because every few days I would do kind of like a blog entry, and it was hilarious. Like people were, because I went to North Carolina A&T, and it's a lot of nerds that go there, a lot of computer science type people, engineers, and they were all at the time uh, on the internet all the time. They were doing chat and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they would email me and be like, girl, they would have all these conversations. I was like, this is kind of great.
Yeah.
So, of course, that was short lived. And then I started, when I got married, my husband was telling me about all these other platforms. It wasn't WordPress at the time, it was Drupal and what was the other one? Joomla. I was on that for a long time. Yeah.
You know what? You know what that reminds me of? I don't know if you remember, there was a Greek website, Sisters and Brothers. I've forgotten what it was called, but the webmaster's name was Jamila. And
Ooh.
it was pre-blog. And it was a message board. And every time you would post something, you'd have to hit refresh to see who answered right on top.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually started a message board called Sorors and Sister Friends.
Oh.
Yes. And it was pretty hot and happening. And it was positioned for sisters of AKA, Alpha Kappa Alpha, and those who wanted to be. And it was kind of it was the underground. And, Nationals actually came for me for a while, and they had to make sure it was okay. But it was for sister friends who wanted to be sorors, who might want some inside scoop from anonymous people on what to do to manage the intake process or pledging, which we couldn't say, right? And it got pretty popular. And I can't remember why I stopped it, but yeah. So this was like pre-blog.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
And it's funny that how innovative that would be for that time.
Yeah.
Because now you could, there's lots of different places you could probably get information. They have all kinds of YouTube videos and stuff.
Right.
But back then,
Nothing.
And
I coded that thing from scratch. I literally used HTML. Yeah. I mean, what else were you going to do? WordPress wasn't around.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't drag and drop anything.
No. Or you know what you could do? What are those terrible, those plugins that always end up getting hacked? They were the guest book.
Yeah.
You could do those. If they had some third-party plugins like that, but if you didn't do it yourself, you probably were going to get hacked anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I used. I just did a regular site, and I used a plugin like guest book. And literally, people would post, and then you have to refresh to get the next ones.
Yes.
We're old, Eva.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, but hey, we were coding, right?
Listen, we were moving. We were moving.
Okay, so.
But once I realized that you didn't have to keep, coding every page, copy and paste and then change whatever you had there. Because my husband had introduced me to Mambo, and it was a content management system. And I was like, so wait, I design a page once, and then I just keep changing this is all right. So this is going to be, it. And then I think the Mambo project merged with Joomla some kind of way, and I ended up on Joomla, and I just let Joomla go. Like, maybe
wow,
it's a problem.
Okay,
once you get
we're going to start calling this confession soup.
Right. Don't tell anybody. It'll look like WordPress. Don't tell anybody.
They don't know until they get on the back end, right?
Right. They don't have to know. But once I got into that, and then I started blogging like regularly when I was trying to get more connected to the culture, and the way that it's similar to your story about people who wanted to be AKAs and things like that. There was nowhere to get information online. You had to know somebody or be friends with somebody, and they would invite you to these events. And I'm going, how is it possible that these events are packed and no one, like, it's all word of mouth? So anybody who was on the outside looking in would not be able, they'd be like, they wouldn't know anybody to get in. So I
Yeah.
figured I would be the person that you know. So if you know SocaMom, you can figure out where to get steel pan classes. You can figure out where to get the best jerk chicken. You
I
can
love
figure
it.
out where to, meet up with other moms and stuff like that. So that's when I started blogging regularly. And then I went to a conference that one of my friends invited me to kind of test the concept of SocaMom, and everybody loved it. And that was 2010. I went to the conference. 2011, I officially launched, and
Wow.
been since.
Gosh, so you didn't have any demographic information, did you? Did you know what the numbers were for Caribbean American people who were in America, and if it was increasing? Was this based on demand, or was this just, you know what? I've been looking for a good roti and I can't find one. I had to find one for myself, and I'm sure other people are looking.
It's a little bit of both, because where I grew up, it was just us pretty much, and maybe one other family. So that was the southern United States. When I came up here, people from the Caribbean are everywhere, just everywhere. So New York, DC, Houston, Miami, places like that, it wasn't as difficult for people to get connected. But other areas, I was finding when I would check my statistics, is that at that time I was checking my raw statistics, not Google. What is it? Google Analytics. It wasn't anything like that. Like, you have to comb through these terrible.
Jeez.
Right. But I was seeing that it was a lot of expats looking for information. I had a lot of teachers because I had coloring pages and stuff like that. So there'd be a teacher would leave me a message from Wisconsin. I mean, it was just people from all over the place. People in the Caribbean were actually on the site looking for immigration information. So I had some of that up there. It was overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
Because it was more than I expected. I thought it was going to be a little fun project to help some people, have a good time, and it turned into something a lot bigger. And I felt like I had a lot more responsibility, because it's kind of like, well, if anybody knows, Eva knows.
Right.
And I'm going, why no?
But I'm just Eva.
Right.
No, you're
I really was
SocaMom.
trying to help out a couple of folks. But it expanded, and you just really never know how many people are trying to find out information about the Caribbean. You have some people who were like, I need to do things for Cultural Day at school, for the kids. And I love your coloring sheets because kids can, it's got lots of information that I can use as teaching materials and stuff like that. So as far as getting my children involved, once it got bigger and I started getting approached by companies that wanted me to do sponsored posts, they want you to have your kids try things, and they were all in. They're like, oh, so we just need to go to the movies and you talk about, we could do that. So I just need to pose next to this poster. I can do that. So I just need to eat this candy and tell you whether it was, I can do that. See, I think my dad is just now understanding what I do. My mom picked it up pretty early because she was the one who was very into computers and technology and stuff like that. She was following my blog, from early on. But my dad just now, he called me the other day and he says, I haven't gotten any notifications from you recently.
Oh.
I was like, he said, my notifications, my YouTube notifications, I haven't seen a new video come up. What's going on? Is everything okay?
Okay, wait. Did he engage after you got the JD at Howard or before? That's what I want to know.
I think it was before, because he lives driving 9 hours away from me and the grandkids. So it was a little bit before, once he realized he could see the grandkids doing what they do on his phone.
And not
He's
have
like,
to
wait,
join
what?
Facebook.
Right. He's not on Facebook. He's not on Twitter. He's not on any of these things. He's like, so I just have to go to your YouTube channel and I can see the kids, you know, at the beach on vacation. Like, I don't have to scroll through these still photos. I can see the kids actually growing up and doing stuff. I'm in.
Oh.
So he subscribed and, you know,
Well,
he's
that's
been looking for.
exciting. You know what? I'm sure he's proud of you. My mom kind of had that moment when I told her I was launching a podcast.
Oh,
Once I got past what exactly that was and that it was connected to my website, she got to me the next day and she's like, I have signed up.
oh.
I have signed up for the podcast. When does it start?
Why is
She's
that
not on
the
Facebook
best
either.
feeling? Is that not the best feeling?
Yeah,
It's
it
like
really
you
is.
can have hundreds and thousands of subscribers, but when your parents sign up, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
I
you
have made it.
Yeah. What's next?
I've made it.
SNL?
Right. It's like I've made it. I don't even need to do anything else. My dad subscribed, so it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Who needs Google Analytics when you know that one person that signed up was your mama?
Oh yeah, you're good then. You're good then.
Your kids got the hang of your blogging, and I'm sure they connected the dots between their activities and monetization.
Yes. So the 13-year-old, he was probably about 6 when he got his first sponsor. Was he 6? Probably about 6 when he got his first sponsor post on his own.
Oh, wow.
So he is obsessed with minivans, always has been. And I had a conversation at a conference about.
Okay, stop
him.
for a second. You
Oh,
have to
yep.
explain Dave and his minivans. Dave
Okay.
loves cars.
Yes.
Okay.
Dave is obsessed with cars. Like, he collects car brochures, and he was so upset when they all became electronic because he would go to the different dealerships or go to the car shows and collect his car brochures every single year.
Wow.
He has a collection of them. Dave doesn't get on punishment like most kids do. If you want him to straighten up, you just say, I need you to collect all of those brochures and put them outside your door. And
Yes, ma'am.
whatever it is, it's going to get fixed. Whatever it is. You can't play with him and his cars.
So he's got this thing about minivans. I just had to qualify that before you just brush that off like it
He
was
is
normal.
fully obsessed with minivans, and it needed to be red. So red minivans were his thing. Like, he would,
Alrighty.
so if he passed one that had a dent in it, you could see him tear up. Like, I mean, he was obsessed. Okay. So I was telling, they had this bright red van at a conference I went to, and Dodge had kind of like a whole area dedicated to this red minivan. And at whatever car show he went to, Dave would go straight for this red minivan because that was the color, you know, the one that stands out that everybody goes look at. So I went and told them about Dave, and they were like, are you serious that he's obsessed with minivan, not sports cars, minivans? I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. He is all about minivans. So they gave him a minivan for a week.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, wait.
And
Refresh us on how old Dave is.
Dave is now 13, but at the time, I believe he was 6.
Okay, and so they gave him, meaning
right
in your possession.
Right, he can't drive.
Right.
But, I mean, he realized how big of a deal it was when this big 18-wheeler comes and the back of the, you know, they open up the back of the thing and this red minivan comes out. I thought the boy was going to explode. I didn't think he was going to make it. I thought he might have a heart attack. Like,
I think I would too.
He was fully falling apart.
I mean, my mind would be blown. I'm trying to make myself think of myself as Joni. She's 6. And, you know, just this morning, she was like, Mommy, when are we going to get a new car? Which I already think is like, why is it coming out of your face, little person?
Yeah.
But if somebody just came and dropped off a vehicle on the back of a Mack truck,
Yeah, he
Yeah,
wasn't okay.
yeah.
He wasn't okay. And they had arranged for him to go to the dealership and have the guy, you know, take him on a tour of the car. And it was just, and of course it's a sponsored post, so they're paying on top of this for the blog post that comes after. Of course, Dave's not going to write it, but he did a video for them and all of this stuff. And he's like, I want a blog of my own.
Oh.
I was like, oh.
So I had to ask you this.
Okay.
Was this before or after Oprah?
I want to say after. I believe it was, I think it was after.
And I kind of just opened up a can of worms by evoking Mother O's name. So you have to explain.
Okay, so I talked about the 5 Love Languages book on my blog. And it's an amazing book, and it was something that from the start of my marriage, it was something that the counselors had us go through and talk through and things like that. And so I don't know how the thing came to me, but I ended up, they had a questionnaire or something, and I filled it out, and then I got a phone call. Actually, my husband got a phone call, and then I got a panicked phone call from him, like, are you going to answer the phone or not? And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? I mean, the phone was ringing. I was just getting to it. Well, they're trying to call you, and he couldn't even get everything out. All he could get out was, Oprah. I was like, what? What? He could not get a hold of himself, and he's just gibberish is coming out, and then the only thing that made sense was Oprah. So I was like, okay, calm down. I'm standing next to the phone now. I'll answer it. And so we ended up being the success story on the life class that they did on the 5 Love Languages. So they had different couples that were talking about how they dealt with different things in their marriages, and we ended up going to talk to
the Queen.
Yeah.
So you know what? This blog opened up a lot of doors for you. And
oh my goodness!
The idea behind this podcast and anything that I do is the intersection of business, tech, and culture. And we covered the tech, we covered the culture. The business part of it really kind of is the glue when it comes to this conversation we're having. So you've been able to monetize, your kids have been able to monetize. It's kind of meta. I mean, most bloggers, they're just happy to get a sponsored post on their own, let alone their baguettes, right? So little Eden, I almost called her Eva, Eden has done some stuff for clothing brands and what else? She's done some stuff. Toys?
Yeah, she's done toys and clothing and what else did she do? She did hair stuff. She's got a lot of things going on, and she's been wanting to have her own blog for a long time, and I kind of held off on it because there were so many things happening. Evan had his ambassadorships. He was doing all kinds of things. It's for my blog, but technically,
it was his business.
It's his stuff. So,
and wasn't Evan doing some things for some resorts and?
Yes, he ended up in Turks and Caicos and Jamaica, and so then I've got the one boy on this side. He's doing his car blog and wants us to be all over the country at car shows, and then Evan, we were his guests when we went.
Isn't that something?
Right. When the thing says guests of Evan, I'm like, really? Wow. That's fine. So he's getting to do stuff, and then she's just kind of doing stuff for me, but she really, really wanted to do some things on her own. So she's just now getting into kind of her own identity online, not just SocaMom's kid.
Needless to say, there are probably some parents on the line right now salivating, thinking, I got these little money makers at home. I them first, and then, give them some encouragement.
First thing I would say is make sure that the kids want to do it. Because if you are the blogger and you have built your brand around your children and then they decide they don't want to do it, you're going to be stuck.
Good point.
So let's say that you have a kid who's done some stuff for a particular clothing brand, and then other clothing brands see that she's good at it or whatever, and then you're getting all these offers, you've already counted the money, and your kid is like, I don't want to. I'm not smiling for the camera anymore. Or they get to the age where they don't want their friends to see them online. So first thing, make sure that they want to do it, and make sure you have a strategy if they change their mind. So just make sure that it's something that they want to do and that you have a plan if they change their minds. If you've built, you have to have a plan B. If you've built your brand as a family blogger and these are my funny kids, your kids might get to the point where they don't want to be online anymore. David, he had, built his blog. He had done some things for me. And then all of a sudden he decided, I don't want to be in front of a camera anymore. And as a parent, as a business person, you are like, are you kidding me right now? But as a parent, you're like, you know what? You don't have to, because this is not, it's not mandatory.
You raise a really good point here, because if you're a mom blogger, if you're a parenting blogger or influencer, there's a fine line between you discussing and showing your life as a mom. But I guess what's implied is there are kids. So
yes.
I think even from jump, you probably had to make some decisions on whether or not you included them in the narrative or not, right?
Yes, once they reach, and mine are right at that age where their friends are online. And I remember Eden was in an after-school program, and she comes home and says, somebody Googled me, and I, went by their computer screen, and they were watching my videos. I said, well, how do you feel about that? She was like, it's creepy, because I don't think she had ever seen anybody or thought about the fact that people would recognize her outside of like my peers.
Well,
she
and
never
what an
considered...
insightful feeling to have. So
yeah.
She's a very bright girl, because there are some kids that would just be like, oh, somebody saw me on the internet. Wow. And leave it at that. But she's thinking about her internet footprint. That's what it comes down to.
Well, this is fun, and I am looking forward to hearing all of the other guests, because I see, the teasers coming up on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So as much as I was looking forward to being a guest, I am really looking forward to listening as well.
Awesome. Well, I always ask, if you have a pet project, if you have an upcoming appearance, if you want to drive people to your website, this is your chance to do your call to action, Eva. Give it to us.
Well, okay. My website is SocaMom.com, SocaMom.com. And right now it's just, my regular thing. My Twitter is at SocaMomDC, and my Instagram is at SocaMom. Pretty much everything else is at SocaMom. My YouTube is a little different. My YouTube is youtube.com/Eva Wilson.
That wraps us up here with SocaMom. Thank you, Eva Green Wilson. Coming up next episode, we have New York radio executive and comedian Jamie Roberts, also known as my podcast mentor. Till then, find us online at theculturesoup.com. Follow us on Instagram or Twitter at theculturesoup. And of course, subscribe wherever you find your favorite podcast. Talk to you again soon. The Culture Soup Podcast is a production of No Silos Communication.